First of all, thank you for having me. My name is Bunita Sawhney. I am the Chief Consumer Product Officer at Mastercard.
So obviously most people are familiar with Mastercard, most of us have a Mastercard, but what about the future of Mastercard and the future of payment networks? Are they going to be relevant forever?
I think it's a really, really wonderful time to be innovating in the network space. There's so much new things happening that we get the opportunity to think about innovation. And at Mastercard, we talk about keeping up with the speed of life because payments are part of our every single day needs, whether I'm a merchant and I need to accept payments, whether I'm a consumer and I need to have a safe and seamless way to pay. There's always new innovative ways that we can think about meeting and addressing these consumers and businesses' needs.
Well, on that note, what do you think the next big thing is going to be in payments?
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of big trends that we watch and we follow. Maybe I can hit on two of them. First and foremost, I think about agentic commerce and AI, because obviously there's not a single conversation that we're having these days that doesn't involve artificial intelligence. And yet, from a Mastercard perspective, we've launched something called Mastercard Agent Pay. And what's critical about it is making sure that we're enabling consumers to pay the way they want to pay in a safe and a secure way with the information that they've provided and that they find trust in. And that means being able to, for example, think about a young lady who's, turning 30 years old. She's planning her birthday party, and she might want to be thinking about what outfit she's going to wear. She has stores that she likes to buy from. She knows what the weather's going to be in the venue that she selected. All of this is data already she can infuse in her process, and it'll make it faster for the selection to be made and even the transaction to occur.
So going back to the future of the networks, a lot of fintechs are trying to almost bypass the networks by allowing consumers to pay maybe bank to bank or even peer to peer, which wouldn't necessarily then include a payments network like yourselves. How do you think about their role and potentially challenge to your business model?
Yeah, well, Mastercard is a network, and we're built on the concept of partnerships. And we know that when we add value, and we create value with our partners, we have the opportunity and the right to participate. And we do this with partnerships with account-to-account systems. We actually have made investments in account-to-account payments ourselves, right? And so we're participating in domestic infrastructure in the United States, in the United Kingdom, and in many different countries around the world. So it's not just about cards, although we believe very much in the future of cards, but also in all the various rails and ways to pay. But it fundamentally comes back to creating value. And that comes down to some of the super strengths that we have, things like cyber intelligence, keeping payments safe, making sure that we can help systems avoid fraud and scams, and making sure that there's trust and confidence for all the players in the ecosystem, whether that's the consumer or that's the merchant.
So thinking maybe not so much about fintechs, but other tech companies. We have seen Apple obviously launching Apple Pay.
Yeah.
Are they a friend or a foe of MasterCard? How do you think about them and you? What's your relationship?
Yeah, well, when we think about big tech partners, whether it's an Apple or other partners like that, we think about the opportunity again where we can create value for one another. The reality is big tech companies have their strengths. Mastercard's strength is in payment technology. And we know that when we work together, we develop a better experience for consumers and businesses worldwide. We think about tokenization, for example, and payment passkeys. These are critical technologies that we've been leading in that allow a partner like an Apple, for example, to bring a trusted experience to the consumer or to the merchant. And that is something we do consistently all around the world at scale, being able to help protect consumers' information, mask information where it doesn't belong, and make sure that ultimately the information is being received by the person who's providing it and receiving it is trusted and safe, helps to have a seamless and safe experience that most people don't even know is happening behind the scenes, but it comes through the investments that we've made in things like tokenization, for example.
So we live in an interesting time with tariffs and countries wanting to become more independent.
Yeah.
Obviously, MasterCard is a global network, and that's a huge value proposition. But how do you think and how do you respond to countries and continents like Europe thinking we need to make ourselves more independent from, for example, things like a global payments network in case we were to be cut out or for whatever reason? How do you think about global interoperability and global politics, I suppose?
Yeah. Look, I think just as, the way we think about consumer payments or payments for people is very personal, so does every country need to think about its needs, right? What we know, again, is when we have the opportunity to partner, we've been thinking about domestic relevancy and partnership with domestic schemes for decades. Mastercard is already partnering with domestic schemes all around the world, over 20 countries, where it's a Mastercard product connected and technology connected with, say, gyro in Germany or bancomat in Italy. And there's a number of examples like these where the best of both parties are coming to the table to create the best experience for consumers and businesses. And again, a lot of that comes back to the investments that we've made in critical capabilities like contactless technology, like tokenization, like payment passkeys, where we, because of our global scale and our reach, have the opportunity to scale these innovations at pace, but also keep up with both the opportunities and the risks that in an individual basis, in an individual market or country, could become risks or blind spots if those partnerships aren't struck.
So it's hard to talk about finance and not talk about Gen AI. We kind of touched on it already.
Yeah.
But how are you thinking about Gen AI? How do you incorporate it? Where are the low-hanging fruits, and where are you benefiting? Where are the consumers benefiting, or your bank partners?
Yeah.
How do you think about that?
Look, I think generative AI is coming into payments in a number of different ways. One example, of course, we talked about is Mastercard Agent Pay, but we're thinking about infusing artificial intelligence, trusted information, safe and secure information into a number of different use cases, whether that's improving the consumer's travel experience, whether that's improving a dispute resolution and being able to understand and process the information more quickly and anticipate the need to sort of reduce the time to a servicing experience. So the whole host of ways where AI come into play. One of my favorite examples is we think about one credential. Mastercard is talking about Mastercard One Credential. The lines between credit, debit, prepaid are blurring for the consumer. They know they want to make a payment. They know what funding sources they want to use. And now with artificial intelligence, we have the ability to think through the usage and the consumer's information, their payments, their flows, their money management tools, their preferences, and be able to help anticipate what's the best and right funding tool at the moment of the payment, as an example.
So thinking ahead about the future, let's say 3 to 5 years, there's a lot of talk about blockchain. Will that ever become a real thing? What's on your radar in terms of the evolution of payments?
Yeah, well, just staying on blockchain in particular, I think blockchain and stablecoin absolutely have the opportunity to become mainstream, more so now than ever. I think, for example, the ability for a consumer who may want to pay with a stablecoin, for us as a network to connect them to a merchant who may not yet be ready to settle with a stablecoin, they can utilize Mastercard acceptance, and we can help make sure that the settlement is done in the way the merchant wants to, while the consumer is able to make the payment in the way that they want to. So I think already we're working with partners like MetaMask or Kraken, and we have the opportunity to really bring those types of cases together that empower the consumer with the choices that they want, but also make sure all the way through the value chain, the acquirer, the merchant, they're able to receive and process the transaction the way they need to.
Super interesting. Anything else that you'd like to highlight, something you're working on right now or thinking about that we haven't touched on already that you think is worth?
Oh, well, thank you so much for the opportunity. I would say this, I'm super excited actually about something that doesn't even sound that new, which is contactless technology. And I'll tell you why, right? Oftentimes we hear a lot about QR, and QR has helped us make headway and ways into markets that maybe previous technology hadn't penetrated. But what we're finding as the cycle continues is that contactless as a common denominator is actually the best consumer experience for a fast and seamless transaction. But I'd love to give you a couple of examples, right? One, as we think about a tap and go experience for transit. Here, if you take the New York subway system and you could just tap and go, it's much faster, it's safe and secure, and your preferences are noted. We're opening up transit systems all around the world because of the ability to infuse it with contactless transaction technology. What's also amazing about that, though, is we did a study a few years back, or like last year, with Nubank in Brazil. Why Nubank and why are they so special? They've been committed to financial inclusion and making sure that we're bringing consumers into the banking system, the formal banking system. And the study that we did together with them helped us understand that the specific implication of providing a consumer with a contactless credential actually helped move them down the journey from just having basic access to trust and security and health. Because being able to utilize my payment product, whether that's a prepaid or a debit card, every day, whether it's a tap and go for transit, whether it's to buy my coffee, helps me get habitually trained for safe transactions that help me with my money management and help me feel very confident to pursue more formal banking solutions on a go-forward basis. So contactless has this really special power that helps us infuse a better experience for everyday payments, but also helps consumer gain confidence in using these types of payment tools.
Fascinating insight. Thank you very much for sharing. I appreciate that.
Thank you. We're so glad to be with you. Thank you so much.